The first thing you want to do is summon the Diet and then go for whichever agenda best suits you, followed up by the Seizure of Land that gives you another 5% crownlands and gets rid of the negative modifiers that you start off with. The privileges that will be giving the nobility are supremacy over the monastic order, monopolies on livestock, and monopolies on gemstones. For the clergy, will be giving just the oversight by the clergy, and the burghers will receive the free enterprises and the private trade fleets. Economically speaking, the Teutons are doing semi-decent. We will be losing these two provinces quite early on in the game whenever the event triggers, and we will have to sell them off to the Brandenburgians. Otherwise, we're gonna get super bad relations with Austria, and we really don't want that, as we desperately need to join the HRE. When looking at the trade map mode, you quickly realize that you have 32% of the starting home trade region, which is the Baltic Sea trade node. You've got one more merchant transferring trade from Novgorod and another one from Krakow. Keep it like this for now. When you look at the trade goods map mode, you see there you have the province of Königsberg, which is producing gemstones. This is really great and you want to dev it up, but not at the start. You want to use this after you've gotten some of your ideas already, and it's cheaper to dev up provinces. The two provinces here are producing livestock, so the monopoly on livestock that you gave is not a big deal. It's basically free cash since we're going to be selling these off soon. Another thing I recommend doing is just exploiting the development in both Neumark and Dramberg. I also recommend focusing on your military points and going for a diplomatic reputation advisor if you have one available. It is randomly generated, so it's not guaranteed that you do have one, but if it is available, desperately go for this guy, as it's going to make it easier for you to improve relations and to get alliances. If you by any chance get a morale of armies, fort defense, or discipline guide, that is perfect, but it's not always available, or it might be a tier 2 one, which is a bit too expensive at the start. Do remember that you have 4 forts at the very start, including your capital fort. So you do have a lot of defense when it comes down to it, but the Polish do have a lot of troops, which we'll learn how to deal with in a few moments. The first rivals you should be going for are always going to be Poland together with Lithuania, followed up by Wolgast, which will be your first target to expand into after you've joined the HRE. Joining the HRE requires us to press this button once we have 149 relations with the Austrians. That is quite easy to do. We just need to improve relations as well as send a gift to them, and that's going to get us over to 149 or above. Another easy way to get relations with them is to rival the same rivals as them, but unless they rival Poland or somebody close to us, we cannot do that, so it is not always going to be available. When discussing what allies to go for, pretty much in all of my games I've had Livonia and Scotland available, together with the majority of the HRE princes. In about 80% of my tries I have had the Bohemians as an ally, and this is probably the best nation you should ally. They most of the times rival the Polish, and you can rely on them when fighting against the Poles. If they do however get rivaled by the Austrians, or if they rival Austria, you should not ally them even if it is an available option, as that's going to lower your relations with the Austrians and it's going to make it impossible to join the HRE. Another great nation to ally is Hungary. You just need to improve relations with them a bit and they're going to be available as an ally. If they did rival the Bohemians, I would prioritize Bohemia over Hungary. However, the Teutonic Order can choose its heir from a variety of local nobles or merchants or various preachers and so on. You don't know what kind of stats they have, but you do see what bonuses you get from selecting either of these options that you have here. Go for whichever you think is best for you, and you can even get a decent ruler or a really bad one. So if you do manage to get the Bohemians and Livonians as your first two allies, I would recommend going for Saxony as the third one. And within the first month of the game, you're going to get the Prussian Confederation event happen, which is going to basically destroy your nation if you don't know how to manage this. This will lower the burghers' loyalty, increase their influence, and give them plus 10% of your lands. And this is also going to give you a ticking disaster. Basically, if you don't deal with the Prussian Confederation within the first 16 years of the game, then afterwards Danzig is going to become a free country and it's going to get the Poles to support them in a war against you, in which you cannot even call in your allies because technically you will be the one assaulting the Prussian Confederation. There are some options to deal with this. The first option would be to concede to the Prussian Confederation, which is going to give them 20% of land, and you're going to have 35 autonomy flat in every single one of your provinces until you revoke this privilege. However, I don't recommend doing that, as you can just curtail the Prussian Confederation manually. You just need to have one stability and crown lands 40%. This will ensure that the Prussian Confederation will not rise up against us, as well as give us -1 national unrest. In order to fix this, we need to seize land from the estates 3 times in 1449, 1454, and 1459. We have to be extremely exact with these dates, and we also need to dev up a province once. Before you do dev up any province, remember to encourage development to lower the amount of mana points needed to dev it up, and I recommend deving up your capital of Marienburg, as that would be the cheapest option. That's going to get you to 25% crownlands, so seizing from the estates 3 times gives you an extra 15%, thus you're going to have 40%, which is the amount that you need to curtail the Prussian Confederation. You just need to remember these 3 dates, 1454, 1449, and 1459, and you have to be super exact about these, because if you end up in 1460, then the event triggers and you're gonna be in a massive war that will destroy your country. Do remember, you also have the option of conceding to the Prussian Confederation if you feel like you cannot click this button at the right time, or if you really want to cheese it, you could release Danzig as a vassal, but that will definitely lower your economy and significantly lower your land force limit as well, as Danzig itself gives you +2 land force limit. After Poland manages to make the Lithuanians a junior partner, you're gonna have 1 more rival slot, so go for either Stettin or Denmark. I would recommend Stettin, however, as it is going to be easier dealing with them. Also remember to start getting a claim on Wolgast. We want to claim Stolp and Kölbeg, so that whenever we join the HRE, we can attack them for these 2 provinces, or even more if we can get our hands on them. You will definitely need around 200 ducats in order to get 25 relations from sending a gift to the Austrians, so if you don't have that much, just take a loan. It's not a big deal, and it's definitely gonna be worth it. This should give you up to 150 relations with them, which means that we can join the HRE. Booyah! We're part of the HRE, everybody. If you manage to join the HRE before the Neumark event triggers, that means you can also keep on to these provinces, but if you don't join the HRE before it triggers, then you should give these to Brandenburg. That being said, we can recruit the Free Company now and start getting ready for the war against Wolgast. You should get an admiral also, as you're gonna need one. Wolgast's fleet is quite large, and we want to be able to take control of the southern Baltic Sea here, as that means we're gonna get bonuses to sieging down the forts and we can move freely everywhere. We need to finish this war before the 11th of November 1449, so if you're not sure you can do it until then, wait until that strikes, and then after the 11th of November 1449 we can attack them. Before you do get to seize land from the estates, make sure you fully maintain your troops, as seizing land is going to give you -20 loyalty, and the clergy as well as the burghers will become disloyal and spawn in rebels. Keep 1 army in Danzig and the other one in Ortelsburg in order to kill off the rebels before they actually take any provinces. If they spawn in the fort provinces, it's not an issue, and keeping these armies in these 2 provinces means that you can quickly get to the provinces which don't have a fort. Once the 11th strikes, you're gonna go for summoning the Diet first, and then choose whatever is best for you as an agenda, and then seize land. This will trigger 2 potential rebels. There we go, we got 1 rebel in Memel, so we're gonna fight them off, and that is it, luckily enough. Next up, we're gonna be seizing land in 1454 on the 12th of November. Now that we finished with our sieging of land, we can easily declare war on Wolgast, as we don't need to worry about not finishing the war in order to seize lands, and set your war goal for whatever you need to conquer and go for it. You should have a superior fleet. Make sure you finish the war within the next 5 years, which is quite a long time, so you should be able to finish it quite easily. Make sure to use the Free Company to siege down the fort in Wolgast, as their manpower pool is not of any importance to us, and use your main army to take care of the rest of the Wolgast army hiding in Rügen as always. Peace out the Wolgastian allies first and take all the cash, as well as cancel their rivals to get extra prestige. And then make Wolgast your vassal and take all their cash as well. This means you can get some new rivals now, and you should be going for the Danes as well as Brandenburg. You might also go over your diplomatic relations slots. If that is the case, drop whatever alliance is useless. In my case, that would be Munster. Remember to improve relations with Wolgast so that they stop being disloyal. You also have the options of placating them or deving up their provinces in case they are really disloyal, but you're not going to end up having to do that. Having Wolgast means that we now have a land force limit of 18 and slightly better income as well. Don't forget to boost your stability to at least 1, as it is one of the requirements to curtail the Prussian Confederation. I also recommend getting claims on Mecklenburg for whenever the chance arises and you can actually take them on, as well as send some money to the Curia in order to get some better influence and a higher chance of becoming the next Curia controller. Remember, in November 1454, to seize land from the estates as well, remember first to summon the Diet in order so you don't get a rebellion again, and go for whichever agenda best suits you, followed by seizure of land. Thus we get up to 35%, so in 1459 we should have enough to curtail the Prussian Confederation. I also recommend that you take on Stettin whenever you get the chance to. In my game here, they are allied to Poland, but Poland is occupied and being besieged by the Hungarians, so they're quite busy with that, and as such I can swoop in and I can take over the Stettin lands. Call in your allies to make it an easy war, as we need to finish it before 1459. So trigger the war and let's go get some Stettiners. Even if you do have 10 favors with the Bohemians, do not call them into this war. You want to keep the favors for whenever you go to war with the Poles. Also, whenever you get tech level 5, rush for that, as it's going to give you much better troops. And peace out the allies of Stettin whenever you can. Always ask that they cancel rivals, as that gives you the highest amount of prestige. The game recommends that you choose the men-at-arms, but actually the best unit would be the longbow, as they give offensive shock as well as offensive morale and defensive morale. Wait for your allies to finish sieging down the nations allied to the Stettiners. Do remember, when you peace out all of the OPMs in the HRE, the best thing to always go for is transfer trade power, war reparations, as well as cancel one of their rivals for the extra prestige boost. This rule that you need to follow when piecing out OPMs doesn't just apply to the Teutons, but basically everybody when you play in the HRE. Peace out Stettin and make them your second vassal. This is gonna get you over the Diplo relations slots, but this also means that you can get the strong duchies privilege, as you now have 2 vassals. The privilege gives you +2 Diplo relations and liberty, desire, and subjects -10%, so they're gonna be super loyal. Having 2 vassals means you can get more troops, as it increases your land force limit, so get 1 more cavalry unit and 1 more infantry, and do remember to improve relations with all of your vassals. It is also super important that you make them a vassal rather than take the lands directly, as if you would take the lands directly, that means that you would get less crownlands and you will not be able to get rid of the Confederation by 1459. Another thing you will have to worry about is Austria demanding unlawful territory, and we definitely don't want that, so do make sure initially, until you get an alliance with the Austrians, that you vassalize everything you take in the HRE and then integrate it afterwards. 14th of November 1459, we are gonna be seizing land from the estates once more. Do remember, you're gonna get some rebels from the burghers, so be ready to fight them off wherever they might spawn. They spawn in Danzig, so that's quite lucky for us. This means we can also curtail the Prussian Confederation. Booyah! We don't need to worry about the Prussians rising up anymore, and you don't need to ever give this concession to the Prussian Confederation. Do ensure that you curtail the Prussian Confederation before 1460, so it is absolutely crucial that in 1449, 1454, and in 1459 you are at peace in order to seize land from the estates. As such, make sure to time your wars so that you are at peace on those 3 dates. Whenever you get your first idea set unlocked, I recommend going for quantity ideas if you have extra military power, or if you have admin, I recommend going for economic. Regardless of whichever you take as the first idea, take the other one as the second. So mix in economic ideas with quantity ideas, as the Prussian lands are not the richest, and having economic definitely boosts up your economy considerably. And then when you mix it in with quantity, it can even give you -30% dev cost reduction from the policy and the economic ideas. Thus you can seriously play toll and improve your economical situation. Quantity also fixes your manpower issues and increases your land force limit by 50%, so definitely needed, especially since you're fighting against nations double or triple your size. As a third idea, I would go for quality ideas, as it it boosts up your army strength, and the policy that you get from economic and quality is super good as well, as it gives you an extra plus 5% discipline. The Teutons do not have their own mission tree, but once you do form Prussia, you're gonna get the Prussian mission tree, which is insanely good. In order to form Prussia, you will need admin tech 10 and to just convert to either Reformed or Protestant, as well as own your province of Königsberg. After you manage to get rid of the Prussian Confederation and you don't need to worry about Danzig becoming an independent nation anymore, make sure that you go to your vassals before anything else, divert trade so you get a bit of extra boost to your economy, and ask them to be your supportive units, as we're gonna be attacking the Poles. They're gonna have more troops than us, but definitely we can rely on the Bohemians, as you will have 10 favors by now, and together this basically evens up the odds. We don't even need to get any mercenaries except the Free Company and our trustworthy main retinue here, together with our vassals. Declare war on the Poles and start rushing for their forts here. Make sure that you tell your vassals to help you out in the Free Company, as you're gonna use that to siege down the forts. And try to get Poznan first, as the Bohemians most definitely will want to have that. A lot of the times the lands that you want are the same lands that the Bohemians want, so do make sure you take these lands before Bohemia does. Also remember to set the defensive edict in both of your provinces here, as you are going to need it to boost up the defensiveness of your forts. And remember to take whichever province you went to war for so that you get the ticking war score against the Poles. Winning every engagement means more war score as well as army tradition. They will have more manpower than you, but definitely if you pick up the stragglers, it's going to turn into a bloodbath. Especially when they're trying to siege down your lands, try and cut them off and attack them once they're sieging your forts. The Bohemians usually take care of whichever allies the Poles have in the HRE, so after they're basically done in, make sure you piece them out. You don't really want anything from these various allies that the Poles have. Once you've integrated your first vassal, it's going to take a while until you can integrate the next one, as you're going to get -3 diplo relations. But do remember to make full cores out of the newly added provinces here, as you're not going to need to waste admin points. This also means that you're going to have enough Pomeranian culture lands to make Pomeranian an accepted culture, so do this as soon as you've integrated Wolgast to boost up your economy considerably and to prevent any rebellions from Pomeranians. After you've taken most of the big forts such as Kaunas, Vilnius, as well as Krakow and Warsaw, you can piece out the Poles. You might be thinking to take Poznan from the Polish, but I don't recommend it. Instead, I recommend taking the 3 provinces to get the full state here, together with Naklo, and as well as the full state of Samogitia. This is because Samogitia is a bit further from the HRE, and as such you're going to get less AE with the nations within the HRE and a lot smaller of a coalition. Also take as much money as you can from them and just piece them out. Now we have a considerably stronger Teutonic order, and with the money we took from the Poles, we can even embrace Renaissance and even do the expand Teutonic order mission. Core up all the newly added lands, and honestly after you've gotten all of these lands, in the next war against the Poles, it's gonna be a piece of cake, since by that time you should pretty much have the quantity ideas filled up and your army is gonna be double, meaning it's gonna be about the same size as their army. Your truce should expire around the 1480s, so you have enough time to make a strong nation by that point. Do remember to lower your AE, that means try not to go into the HRE too much so that you can take a lot more lands in the next war against Poland.